Well, hi, this is Jefferson Calico again with Comparative Religion, our Comparative Religion course. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about monotheism. I begin one of the lectures of Judaism lectures with this idea of covenant. And so these are monotheistic religions, but they're also covenantal religions. And if you've looked at that slide, then you know that covenant is all about relationship. So these religions are about the relationship between human beings and the one divine being or one God. And so what I hope that you're going to notice is that this covenantal aspect of the religions gives a very different feel to these religions than the Eastern religions we've been looking at. While the Eastern religions emphasize cultivating a detachment to the world, these monotheistic covenantal relationships are all about attachment. So meaning, purpose, fulfillment is found in becoming attached to the one God in some type of relationship. So for instance, the Hebrew Scriptures, this is the Shema, the extension of the Shema. Hebrew Scriptures say, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength." And so this phrase points the reader or the believer towards an emotional as well as ritual and moral attachment to this very personal being of God. So this relationship, like any other relationship of attachment, is then filled with this sort of tangled web, right, of personality. And God is a very personal being who God likes certain things and doesn't like other things. So the believer then begins to conform his or her life to these certain expectations. And thus what we see in these religions, that an issue of discrimination arises, discerning or discriminating between what is good and what is evil. So the issue then is being attached. Attachment is good, but being attached to the right things and avoiding the wrong things. So, for instance, in Judaism, there's this distinction between the clean and unclean animals. This is known as kashrut, the food law governing what to eat and how to eat it. So certain animals are acceptable as food and others are not. And also certain types of behavior that are, the Jewish law outlines this, right? Certain types of behavior that are acceptable and others that are not acceptable. And so what's the key issue here? How do you make that discernment between what's acceptable and unacceptable? Well, the issue is what God is pleased with in this relationship. What does God like? What kind of partner, in a sense, is God looking for? Because in the covenantal relationship, right, the believer then wants to be pleasing to God. And this whole concept of sin then is understood as what is displeasing, or what, and because it's displeasing, it disrupts the relationship between the worshiper and God. Now, Eastern traditions, as we've seen, emphasize this idea of spiritual evolution, so that through multiple lives, through multiple reincarnations, and through our various forms of work and karma, we seek to evolve spiritually into higher states. Ultimately, the dissolution of our human ego and consciousness into the divine, so that in some sense we become part of the divine. We're always part of the divine, but we merge back into the divine or become part of the divine. That's our ultimate spiritual goal in the Eastern religions. But this is not the case in these Western monotheistic covenantal relationships. Even in the mystical traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, we see an emphasis on relationship, an experience of God, rather than immersion or unity or dissolution into the divine. The The difference in these religions, the difference between what is divine and what is human, is maintained. Humans don't become divine because that category is already filled by God, rather than humans are to know and to relate closely to God. Also, in these religions, we see the unique role of humans emphasized much more. It becomes much more prominent. For instance, in the Eastern traditions, like the line between what is animal and human is much more fluid. There's movement right between those categories of beings. And Buddhists, for instance, talk about bowing down to animals, right? Recognizing the Buddha nature in these other beings. So that in a sense, there's a great equality in some sense among all beings, especially in Buddhism. And even in Hinduism, there is this idea that all beings are on this continuum of spiritual evolution, evolving to higher and higher spiritual states. Now, in the West, it's humans, right, who are emphasized. Humans who are, according to the Hebrew Scriptures, created in the image of God. And humans then have this unique duty in the tradition, the Western tradition. It's humans who have this unique duty and privilege of being both morally accountable to God and capable of a relationship with the divine. So animals are in a different class, perhaps loved by God, known and loved by God, but they don't share this capability with humans to enjoy a deep spiritual relationship with God. So humans are the recipients of this special divine favor. So these are just several ways in which this covenantal aspect to these religions plays itself out, and how we see a difference between Eastern and Western religions. So I hope that is helpful to you. Thanks a lot.